Good evening, and thanks for keeping a date with us on the program Transforming Agriculture in Nigeria. A program that gives you information about Nigeria's agricultural sector, as well as the efforts of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to develop the sector. I'm your host, Gabriel Ojile. The animal feed subsector plays a pivotal role in the production of animals for food and other uses. But the feed subsector is confronted with many challenges ranging from climate change, population explosion, leading to an increase in the demand for animal protein. Towards addressing the challenges in the animal feed subsector, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, in collaboration with key stakeholders, is making effort to formulate a policy that will guide the sector. This episode of Transforming Agriculture in Nigeria examines the objective of the policy alongside the views of stakeholders on how it will transform the animal feed subsector. Keep watching.
That will provide the necessary policy direction that will truly position agriculture as the mainstay of our economy.
The federal government is removing obstacles and offering opportunities for self-employment, wealth creation, and food security in the Nigeria's agricultural sector.
Think farming, think agriculture.
Watch Transforming Agriculture in Nigeria, showing on NTA Fridays at 8:30 p.m.
Transforming Agriculture in Nigeria starts with news from the ministry. In the lineup, Minister of State commissions multipurpose grain dryer machine in Abuja. Also, FG distributes rice production inputs and trains farmers in the southwest. Details shortly. Stay tuned. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development has commissioned a multipurpose crop dryer machine that will be used for cleaning and drying of grain and other crops. The Honorable Minister of State, Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mustapha Bawa Shehu, performed the commissioning ceremony in Sheda, in Kwali, Area Council of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Speaking during the commissioning, the Minister of State urged farmers who are the beneficiaries of the facility to use it judiciously.
The drying infrastructure we are seeing today is a pilot one. And the director has just mentioned that effort is on the way to provide this dryer in almost all the 774 local governments in the country. Finally, I want to appeal to the beneficiaries of this machine to utilize this facility effectively and own it as their own.
Also speaking at the occasion, the Director of Agric Extension Services of the Ministry, Frank Setumari Kudla, highlighted the advantages of the machine to farmers and others in the agricultural value chain.
Advantages of these machines, it is among others, one, it is mobile and can be used collectively by number of farmers. Two, it has control panel which makes it easy to operate. A plug and play machine which has its own loading, cleaning, drying, cooling and offloading technology. The grain is constant in motion, that is circulating during the drying process. This ensures a homogeneous final moisture content of the total grain. Due to the constant movement, this is achieved. The grain dries evenly and faster. There are also no burnt grain, and the germination capacity of the grain is preserved.
The federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, has trained farmers on best agricultural practices and distributed rice production inputs as well as other starter packs to farmers in the southwest region of the country. The training and the input distribution which took place at the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, More Plantation, Ibadan, Oyo State, have farmers representatives from Oyo, Ekiti, Ondo, Ogun, Osun and Lagos States in attendance. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohamed Mahmoud Abubakar, who was represented by the Deputy Director and National Coordinator for Rice Value Chain, Bashir Usman, presented the items to the farmers. Abubakar stated that the ministry has introduced an array of agricultural programs and projects to ensure economic stabilization, employment generation, and food security despite the impact of the flood. Abubakar added that the training was to equip rice farmers across the southwest states with good agricultural practices, safe and effective use of agrochemicals to increase rice production, amongst other things. Also speaking, the Oyo State Coordinator of Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Kakulu Omonlele, urged the participants to make use of the knowledge they got from training and step it down to others in their various associations. The National Vice President Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, Victor Korede, and other participants appreciated the federal government for the gesture. The program is transforming agriculture in Nigeria. Animal feed is critical to livestock production. Its availability and affordability can determine the success of animal production. In an effort to enhance the production of quality feed, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is developing a national animal feed policy that will transform the feed industry and, by extension, the livestock subsector. In our next segment, we shall examine the objectives of the draft National Animal Feed Policy, as well as provide insights from the perspectives of stakeholders on the need to have a comprehensive policy document that will address all the challenges in the feed industry. Keep watching.
Animal farming, be it livestock, poultry, or aquaculture, thrives on adequate feeding. In fact, animal feed constitutes 70 to 75% of the cost of production of livestock and other farm animals. The livestock subsector in Nigeria is growing at the rate of 12.7% every year. According to a 2020 data provided by the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Nigeria's national herd is estimated at 7.5 million pigs, 18.4 million cattle, 43.4 million sheep, 76 million goats, and 180 million poultry. The livestock sector is projected to grow by about 500% by the year 2050. The growth and projection is due to high demand for animals and their products, which can only happen with adequate feed production. However, the feed industry is faced with numerous challenges that must be addressed. To identify challenges and the way forward, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development organized the first National Animal Feed Summit in September 2021 to draft a national animal feed policy. This meeting was followed up with a stakeholders consultative meeting to make input to the policy document, which is in the pipeline. The Permanent Secretary, Ernest Afolabi Omahihe, was represented at the occasion by the Director Special Duty, Fauzat Lawal.
As you are all aware, nutritious animal feeds are essential for development and productivity of animals. In Nigeria, the animal feed sector remains a challenge to animal husbandry practices, largely due to high cost of animal feeds, which are not readily available, and where they are not easily affordable by an average farmer. Considering the fact that animal feed accounts for over 70% of the input cost of animal production, thereby making it the most important factor in livestock business.
The series of stakeholders meetings and the draft national feed policy have identified some major constraints to the prospects of the feed industry and the animal subsector in Nigeria. These challenges include inadequate feed production, lack of public laboratory for animal feed and other animal husbandry activities, inadequate nutrition, diseases and low productivity, competition in the use of grain for animals and human consumption, high cost of feed, low quality feed production, inadequate regulations, farmers-herders clashes, amongst others. The policy document, when approved, will address these sundry issues.
The National Animal Feed Policy is bringing, I would say, 3 dimensions in our quest to be self-sufficient in feed production. The very first one is guidelines on how we source the feed ingredients. The second one is how do we regulate and ensure that the end users have quality, value for their money. So standardizing what we call feed, the various types that we have. That is the second. The third one is looking at how we can not only be self-sufficient, how do we position ourselves as a country to be able to even talk about export.
The draft national feed policy has specific objectives which include stimulating increased production, ensuring quality animal feed in the market, reducing production costs, and capacity building of public and private sector players.
The level of feed production situation in Nigeria is not encouraging. That is the main essence of this national feed policy, so that we can have animal feed security. After the production, after the end of this something, we are expecting that there will be increase in feed production, because there is going to be an alternative way of getting ingredients to produce animal feed.
The cost of feed has great influence on the cost of animal products such as meat, milk, eggs, amongst others. The strategies to bring down the cost of feed and make the feed industry more viable, as spelled out by the draft policy, include strengthening research, availing credit to the feed industry, encouraging research in production of feed, utilizing crops waste and alternative feed sources, amongst others.
There are so many alternative feed resources in Nigeria, so many. If you drive around the country, you will see that there are so many. You see heaps and heaps of waste, what we call post-harvest losses, which are actually post-harvest feed materials, feed ingredients for the animal industry. We have cassava peels, we have potato peels, we have peels of so many other farm produce that can be dried and included in very right quantities in our in feed. Beyond that, if you go to the grain market, you will see the kind of waste you see all over the place. Low-grade grains wasted. If we harness all of this, you will be able to lower the cost of our feed ingredients.
While the stakeholders advocate for alternative feed resources, the draft policy document also ensures that quality is ensured in every feed produced in Nigeria.
This policy will address key issues of quality and responsibility of what we call regulators of the industry. You can see that it's not just about the animal Federal Ministry of Agriculture alone. We are looking at organizations and MDAs like NAFDAC, Standard Organization of Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Trade and Industry, all of them coming together within the framework of their laws and seeing how much they can input into this policy so that all of us are on the same page.
The creation of a policy to guide feed production will not only impact on the local use of feed, but it will also open up opportunities for export, enhance the livelihood of the feed millers, farmers, and boost foreign exchange earnings for the country.
What this portends for us now, having this policy, is that Nigeria will now be much more able to export its animal feeds as part of our strategies to diversify the economy away from crude oil. We must just export non-oil products, manufactured products. And Nigeria has some of the best feed mills you can think of in the world. But this policy is not there.
Feed safety has also been considered in the draft document to ensure that every feed produced in Nigeria pose no danger to the health of humans who consume the animals or their products.
Feed safety is food safety. if we have a food safety policy without feed policy, we have not completed the circle. Animal protein is food. We are what we eat. If what we feed to our animals is not safe, then what the animals will be bringing out will not be safe. So this feed policy, apart from all that we have said, is to complement other policies that may have left out the very important aspect of animal feed.
Another key area the policy will address when it is approved is the issue of farmers-herders clashes. The strategy is to encourage crop farmers to engage in the commercial production of pasture, while also encouraging herders to ranch their animals and patronize commercial pasture and grains produced by crop farmers.
There are two kinds of animals, what we call the ruminant animals and then the monogastric animals. The ruminant animals basically depend on grass, pasture. And because of the lack of this pasture, in areas where we have the highest concentration of ruminant animals, they have to move to areas where there is pasture. And because of that, and of course it's not anybody's fault, it's about the issue of climate change and other associated factors. There has always been conflicts, and of course even the proliferation of small arms.
We can avoid, and I repeat, we can avoid, the current clashes that exist between pastoralists and the sedentary crop farmers. We can look at it in such a way that, it would be a win-win situation. The crop farmer trades in his crop residue, and, or the crop farmer grows pasture and develop it into a value, add value to his pasture that, the pastoralist or the small ruminant farmers or the ruminant, subsector would benefit from it and have value addition not only in the feed value chains, but in the other products that are associated with it. It is a symbiotic relationship.
The program is transforming agriculture in Nigeria, and we have been discussing the draft national animal feed policy. Aside the ministry, stakeholders in the livestock subsector were involved in the drafting of the policy, which when adopted will foster profitable partnerships between government and the private sector, especially in policy implementation. Stakeholders we spoke to during the recent consultative meeting spelled out the roles that will be played by federal, state, and local governments, as well as research institutes, feed millers, farmers, and other private sector players for a successful implementation of the policy. Let's get their views on our next segment as we examine the impact of partnerships in the implementation of the policy.
Research plays a pivotal role in every aspect of human endeavor. The animal feed policy will strengthen research as the baseline to bring great transformation in the feed industry.
For the research community, what it means is that we are looking at, the industry or the demand, driven, research. We don't just simply go into researching for the sake of research for publications, no. But we are looking at, research based on the need of the farmers, based on the need of the industry, and based on the need of the nation. And, that is huge work, for the research community and to the academia. And that is also bringing in partnership from the industry, which might provide the funding window, and the government providing an enabling environment for investors and providing an enabling environment for the policy, to take its center stage. And then, the academic community supporting these initiatives by, the research endeavors. And that will simply means, the products of this research will not just be left in the shelves, but the product of the research, especially the particular question you've asked that has to do with ruminant value chains, feed value chains, they would be developed into an industry, into products that would have their way into the Nigerian market and into the international community.
The focus now is going to be on research, but the policy has to look at, has a clause that we are going to look at alternative feed resources. Now it is now an opportunity for the research institute to look at this alternative feed. You know, there's competition between animals and human beings on most of the conventional feeds. Now there are now opportunities for research into other sources of feed. So it's, the research institute are going to play a great role in it for this policy to come into play.
The policy also creates a window for state government to add value to the development of feed and animal husbandry as a whole in their states.
The state players need to be part and parcel of this policy. They need to be able to tell us how this policy will work. They need to be able to tell us if what we are saying as a policy is something that is not workable at the state level. They need to have a buy-in. They need to be part and parcel of the policy formulation so that implementing it at state level becomes easy because they have already put in the formulation those instruments and those activities and the aspects that their states will have challenges. So the challenges are preempted and are addressed at the policy level. So by the time it comes out, both the private sector, the state, and the public sector will have a document that they all contributed to. They were all part of the formulation. They were all part of what has become the feed policy.
The policy will also enhance capacity building of both the public and private sector players in the animal feed industry.
Capacity building is inside this policy for all operators, and particularly for young graduates. They will be going into alternative feed ingredient preparation, baling hay, for example, making hay sellable, making crop residues more compact, maybe made into pellets. So all these technologies will be there because part of the policy also deals with innovative technology.
The policy will also lead to employment generation at the level of feed production, processing and marketing.
It's going to generate a lot of employment. Let's take cassava waste as an example. Cassava waste is all over the place in the country. All you need to do is to capacity building, starter pack for the youth and the rural women to go into cassava waste depot where they are dumping it, process it and give. So that cassava waste is there, is going to give employment to some people. Cocoa waste is there, crop residues is there, so many. So they are undoubtedly there is going to be a lot of employment that will be generated from this policy.
After all is said and done, stakeholders advocate for a speedy approval of the draft policy and the need for proper implementation.
My recommendation to government is that this concerted effort the government has started, it should continue to kind of ginger it to final approval and implementation. Because sometimes some of the problems we have in this country, we have the documents, then the implementation becomes a problem. So I am recommending to government to actually, as we have serious men and women in the Department of Animal Husbandry Services and other stakeholders are very much ready to ensure that this policy is implemented.
Transformation in the feed industry will enhance our animal production in line with the modern reality. And the door of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is open for inputs from every stakeholder in making this policy formidable. This is where we'll draw the curtain today on the program. Join us again, same time, same station next week for another episode of the program. Have a great weekend and bye for now.